Now then, she's the talk of the town. Natalie Winters has certainly got Washington, D.C. in a tiz as she joins the White House press corps. And she's here, right here, on Never Mind the Ballots, making her debut. Natalie, why is everyone so cross with you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Very
Well, to
welcome.
put it in context, they have tried to shut down our show, Stephen K. Bannon's War Room, I think every way possible, deplatforming, decensoring, debanking us, throwing Stephen K. Bannon in prison. But now that President Trump is back in power and their whole censorship industrial complex, I think, is being dismantled as we speak, if you've seen what's been going on at USAID, I guess now they're choosing to attack me for the sweaters that I choose to wear to the White House. It's absolutely absurd. Maybe it's women just being women, but I think, frankly, it shows you the mainstream media, A, is so desperate. Frankly, they're envious. Their numbers, their viewership is absolutely cratering. But again, it's just disrespectful to President Trump, to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who's making a conscious effort to put alternative media voices in the press briefing room. And they want to take that story away from them and try to make it, some clickbait headline about my skirt or sweater.
We're in the business of clickbait headlines occasionally over here, it must be said.
I love me some clickbait too.
Well, that's the thing. So, look, the new White House press secretary, she's doing what, new administrations often try to do, either here or abroad, where they come in, they try to rip things up, do things their own way. Talk us through what this new White House is doing. They're trying to bring in, podcasters, bloggers, social media influencers, sort of activist journalists, sort of campaigning journalists. Where do you fit in all of that?
Sure. Well, I think, again, context matters, right? The Biden White House was one of the least transparent, certainly from a press perspective, that we've ever seen. They actually withdrew over 400 press passes from journalists that they viewed as controversial or hostile. But hey, don't call it state-run propaganda media, but I guess I would. And that's why I'm proud to be in the press briefing room, because I'll call it out for what it is. But more importantly, I think you saw on the campaign trail, right? It was these alternative media voices, these podcasts that are not just corporate-funded media outlets, but rather just normal people who are podcasters talking, I would argue, the truth, as opposed to narratives riddled down and a bunch of conflicts of interest. And I think to sort of say thank you to those voices, the White House, the comms department, the comms team wants to now put that inside the White House. So there's some actual media outlets like my own, you have War Room, who are in there, but then they also launched that new media seat, which is revolving every day for a different podcaster show.
But are you there to hold the White House to account, or are you there to promote the actions of Donald Trump?
No, we're certainly there to hold the White House to account, and I think that we've already sort of proven that. Steve Bannon, myself, I think the H-1B visa debate, we showed that, we don't necessarily
You're no fans
just
of Elon
take
Musk.
the line of President. He's a complicated individual. We're grateful for what he did in Pennsylvania. He gets a seat at the table, but he doesn't get to, I think, terraform the United States government like he wants to do with space into his own sort of personal colony, whether it's for government contracts or just kind of his transhumanist worldview. So we'll call it out when there's problems. We want to make sure that the mass deportations, the campaign promises that they follow through on, are actually manifested and actually happen. I know the left-wing media would use those campaign promises to smear President Trump following through on them, making him an authoritarian dictator, which I guess doesn't quite square with our whole, democracy playbook, their democracy meltdown. But I'm certainly going to hold them to account. But thus far, I think on the issues of sovereignty and immigration, they've had a very strong start.
So you're there to hold their feet to the fire, keep them pure in the sense, sort of in the ideological sense, and make sure that the swamp gets drained this time like it wasn't before. How's it going so far, do you reckon, then? You say so far so good, but, we wake up over here every morning and it's always like, what's Donald Trump said now? Is he actually going to, is he still in campaign mode, or is he actually governing? When he turns up and says he wants to turn, Gaza into a resort, none of this stuff's actually going to happen, though. It's sort of showmanship, isn't it?
Well, look, I think the driving tactic going on here at the White House is the concept of flooding the zone. And I think to put it in to sort of United States perspectives, we are up against not just the deep state, but a media industrial complex that is working overtime to sort of smear and really get in the way in what they call...
Are you though? Because you're basically setting the agenda, though. The entire world's media is dancing to the Trump tune. It's not exactly, it's not like 2016 where he's not really getting a hearing, is it? He's setting the agenda.
Well, I think that that's because they are actually flooding the zone. They're stacking, with one day you have four confirmation hearings for four of the probably most controversial picks that
Yeah.
they've ever had. So I think that that is sort of the tactic that they have to go with because they're not going to get rolled by the mainstream media again. But I also think too the mainstream media take the issue of the mass deportations, for example. They've been colluding with far left NGOs to sort of preemptively leak and in some cases even dox ICE agents, the cars that they're carrying out these raids from to try to get ahead of the president. So there's certainly an activist feeling to the press corps. It didn't go away. But I also think, too, that it's important for, I think, maybe the international community to understand, President Trump, art of the deal. Sometimes the tariffs aren't actually about the tariffs, right? It's a bigger, broader thing.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing, dare I say, economic warfare be used, not just in the context of economics, but to bring about wins on issues of immigration, fentanyl control, limiting fentanyl into the United States.
Let's talk about the international community. Look, you've been covering sort of the appointment of Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, the new British ambassador to the Trump White House, to Washington D.C. Keir Starmer and Donald Trump, our Prime Minister, your President, very different characters. How do you feel they're going to get on? And is everything they're all saying nice things about each other now, but what's actually going on behind the scenes in Trump world about Britain?
Well, I guess we'll have to see. I mean, I think that President Trump always is willing to make a deal. He's willing to negotiate. He's proven that. Sometimes I think he announces things like, I don't know, taking over Gaza in a
Turning it
press
into Mara
conference.
Gaza, it's going to be quite something, right? That's gone down pretty
But there's
badly.
ideological differences there, I
Yeah.
think for sure. But you never know. We'll give it a shot.
I mean, that's not. I mean, the special relationship is it? We talk about it in quite a needy way over here, and everyone has to sort of pledge their sort of affinity to the special relationship. How do you see Trump and Starmer actually getting on, though? You've got your international human rights lawyer, sort of embodiment of the Prime Minister, and a man that's willing to tear up the rules at all times. Can you see them having a good relationship?
Well, look, I don't think what Labor did necessarily on the campaign trail in terms of offering to support to Kamala Harris with a lot of,
Yeah.
candidates coming over here is something that necessarily set that relationship off on a good start or a good tone. But, I do think that there's this idea in really all press that President Trump is being fueled by concepts of retribution and trying to go after people who he disagrees with ideologically. And while to some extent I think that is true for people who have actually not wronged him, but wronged this country. And I think that critique is more acute to sort of what we would call the deep state here in America. I don't think President Trump is out operating to get retribution on our international allies.
Well,
just
that's
for the
good.
sake of
Thank you. That's good to hear.
You're welcome. But you guys got to pay your fair share, right? I think we're tired of being sort of taken advantage of, not just by you guys. I'm not talking about you guys, but in general by the foreign community. We're tired. The American people are tired of subsidizing a world order that makes us subsidize everyone else's healthcare and pensions and international defense, while the American people are left with, fiscal deficits that are just astronomical, and that's why people elected President Trump.
Well, it works both ways, though. We seem to be picking up the tab for a few things. Take the sort of this Chagos deal, the Chagos Islands in the Indian Ocean, a big US airbase, a controversial US airbase at times, that we appear to be about to signing up to pay £9 billion to support. Trump, Marco Rubio has made some sort of a little bit of criticism of it yet, but do you think that deal's going to go ahead?
Well, it seems like it might. I don't like to weigh in on British politics, but I would say having just come off of 4 years of, I feel like, ceding basically all of the United States, not just to Joe Biden, but to a state-sponsored illegal invasion. I apologize for what's going on to you guys. I'm getting PTSD, but I think that sort of shows you the mindset that really afflicts, I think, so much of the modern left, that sovereignty doesn't matter, and that this idea of global government, which I think is epitomized, right, by the United Nations, the World Economic Forums of the world. If there's nothing unique about British identity or British government, much like there's nothing unique about American identity, then why does it matter who's administering territory? I think it's an absolutely horrific deal, but it's sort of the encapsulation, I think, of everything that is wrong, not just with the woke ideology, but with the sort of open borders movement. And for your sake, I hope it does not go through. true. And I think that the United States, on principle, not that we're into interventionism, but I think should be more vocal about it because I think it's a really bad precedent.
Certainly being quite vocal for a non-interventionist president so far, trying to take over Gaza. But we'll leave that aside. Look, just Natalie, I've got to let you go. You've got a busy day ahead of you. It's morning there, but you know, I mean, we keep reading lots of pieces in our press over here about how the right are on the march, the sort of resurgent conservatives. Is it cool to be a conservative now in DC? Are you the cool kids?
I think so. I mean, this seems like the mainstream press can't stop covering us in our social lives. It's kind of annoying. I go out to dinner and I bump into like 3 Washington Post reporters, 3 Wall Street Journal. They all want quotes. But you know what it is? I think it's just an unabashed, unwavering ability now to actually just embrace the ideologies, the beliefs that we've always had. And I think that there's something naturally very appealing about actually living your truth, not to sound like some woke California hippie leftist.
Sounds like you got the woke mind virus there, I'm afraid.
Right? We've had to hide our views. And now, not just because we won with a historic mandate, but I think there's something cool about actually being countercultural to sort of a rules-based world order that's really been so detrimental to most of this country. And now we can speak back because we're also not being censored. So it probably would have always been like this. The censors can't have it.
No censorship here. Natalie Winters, thanks for coming on Never Mind the Balance. Come again and see us soon.
Thank you.